Yes, you are tuned into the Andrew Gasser Show. It is Thursday, the 26th of February, 2026, and we are moving and grooving at 1039 WYAB on our 50,000 watt blowtorch. But if you can't pick up the signal, you're always welcome to go ahead and listen to us on our stream. And we're streaming on Rumble, and we're streaming on X, and we're streaming on YouTube, and we're streaming at the mothership, WYAB.com. Look, if you want to be part of the program today, we'd appreciate it. It's going to be a banger. It truly is. The show prep takes a life of its own. I watched some stuff last night with the Sweet Bee, and then kind of come in the morning, make sure the stories are still relevant. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, this is just it's going to be out of control. Might be a little bit too much. I don't know. We'll wait. We'll find out. But if you want to be part of it, I welcome you to join me. 601-879-0002. The text line is open at 601-879-5060. Yep, those are the numbers. And the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. I'm just gonna put it like this. Um, we are a depraved people right now. Men laying with men, women laying with women, furries doing crazy things in public, sex offenders running for office in California. And it's not good. It's not good. And that's where we're going to start this. And if your bingo card for the Andrew Gosser Show had the show starting off with Bernie Sanders, Senator from Vermont, you would be correct, ladies and gentlemen. You would be correct, because here we go. We're going down this rabbit hole. And this is sort of inspired by one of yesterday's programs here on WYAB, talking about how Maha is dead. I disagree that Maha is dead. I disagree that MAGA is dead. I think that Maha and MAGA are kind of disappointed in some of the decisions that are being made, but there are some good ones being made too. And we just have to go ahead and search that out, because it's so easy to get black pilled. It's so easy to doom scroll, but I never did the easy things. I always did the tough things. So with that, here we go. 3, 2, 1, Colonel Sanders.
As you know, the United States and New Zealand are the only two countries in the world that allow the pharmaceutical industry to advertise on TV. I believe we should ban those ads. How do you feel?
I agree with you.
Colonel Sanders on record as saying he wants to ban pharmaceutical ads on TV. I do too. I'm so sick and tired of getting certain ads, and I don't want them. If the pharmaceutical industry actually collapses, the world economy is going to collapse, not just the United States. Let's get that evidently clear. And do people need their heart medication and their other medication? For now, yes. But we've completely gotten rid of our natural way to heal ourselves. And that's not to say that we don't need stuff that's been scientifically bore out. But it's not even debatable anymore on how bad some of these drugs are. When I think about how the pharmaceutical companies have started off very, very inintrusively, starting to manipulate the minds of not just America, but the world through commercials, through their advertising, it's a little bit disgusting. So why do I say that? Because at the State of the Union address, there was the Drain the Swamp State of the Union watch party, and they had a bunch of gay frogs up on stage with a congresswoman from Oregon. And I'm just going to play that 32 seconds of sound. You'll see where I'm going here in just a second.
I'm a mother. I am a physician, and I have a flag. And I am the proud representative for Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. Yes, thank you. Thank you. And tonight, I defy Trump and his authoritarian project by standing in joyful, radical, peaceful resistance with the
What's joyful, radical, peaceful. Those are all incongruent. There's been nothing joyful or peaceful about the LGBTQ protesters going on. It might be joyful and peaceful outward looking in the classrooms of America on CNN and MS Now and BS Always, but it's not. But let's continue.
Portland Frog Brigade!
The Portland Frog Brigade. Bunch of homosexual frogs running around. Now, this is where it gets deep, my friends. And some of you fam know exactly where I'm going. Who originally said that there were experiments out there by the pharmaceutical company to change the frogs? Who was that? Oh, I got the sound clips and I'm rolling with it. This is like it's not even conspiracy theory. It's all real.
And so the frogs died. And so I said, listen, I'm not against gay people. I just don't want to put chemicals in the water that make the freaking frogs gay. And the media, every late night comic, they all attack me, knowing full damn well that atrazine is a very toxic chemical, and even tiny amounts of it will literally basically shrivel your balls and everything else up so you don't even have a sex life. Okay, and it'll fry your brain. And so it doesn't just, quote, make you gay. That was just something the media picked up on, even though studies show it makes the male frogs want to have sex with the other male frogs.
Look at that. I believe that was 2017. He was ostracized. He was criticized. He was banned from the public square. He brought up atrazine, and no one wanted to cover that. CNN didn't want to talk about that. ABC didn't want to talk about that. NBC didn't want to talk about that. Nope. Didn't want anything to do with that. Shameful. For me, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, we're in 2026. Clearly, the science has proven this out, right? Clearly, the science has proven it itself out.
There's atrazine throughout our water supply. If you in a lab put atrazine in a tank full of frogs, it will feminize every frog in there.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
And 10% of the male frogs will turn into fully viable females, able to produce viable eggs. If it's doing that to frogs, there's a lot of other evidence that it's doing it to human beings as well.
Alex Jones was right, ladies and gentlemen. You've got the leader of Maha right there admitting it. And shout out to whoever made that video, died suddenly on X. I put this together after watching some of the counter programming from the State of the Union address yesterday. There's still fallout coming from that. But to all these people out there saying that the pharmaceutical companies don't have an agenda against you, oh, they do. They want you hooked. I promise you they want you hooked. And they never really cure anything. It just masks the symptoms. And I'm not just talking about pain meds or sleep meds. We're talking about real disease. We're just building a bigger and bigger pharmaceutical industrial complex that's taking more and more of our budget, more of our Medicare budget, more of our Medicaid budget. Why are people getting sick younger? Why are young men all around, not just all around America, but all across the world, more feminized? You know, you see them, the skinny jeans, the manicured nails. Dare I call them prissy? What is causing all this? What is causing birth rates all across the world to incredibly plummet? Sorry about that, I had to sneeze. My goodness, never had that happen before. What is it that's causing all of these men not to be men anymore? And then you take this stuff that they've put in the water and they've proven, and there you can go. I want the listening audience to go look this up itself. I'm gonna retweet this all during the break, all of these video clips that I used. But I want this audience to go ahead and educate themselves so that they can accurately debate this in the public square. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that is why ultimately the United States is failing the way it is. It's because one side screams loud, the other side gets intimidated because it doesn't have all of its facts to the level that it wants to have the facts. And so they just remain silent. I don't want to be silent. I've never wanted to be silent. I was talking to one of my friends last week in Illinois, and he's like, "You were never the quiet type. You always said what you thought." I'm like, "Yeah, it got me in trouble." He's like, "Yeah, but we all benefited from it." And that's where we, as a listening audience at WYAB, that's where we, as conservatives, that's where we, as MAGA, whatever you wanna call us, dare I say, that is where we, as Christians, need to take back the public square, because 'cause they're whooping it. They are whooping it really, really good. And this is true. This is true mental illness at a minimum, and demons at the biggest end. Because I saved the best for last. I saved the best for last. Does anybody remember Robbie Roadsteamer? Andy, that name doesn't sound familiar to me. This was the guy who went into the church in Minneapolis and started screaming at the parishioners, calling them bad Christians, calling them all sorts of different things. Well, he showed up at this State of the Swamp counter counter rally, and this is a little bit long. I'll cut it off at some point, I'm not sure. But he decided he was gonna audition to be the main character of the story because he didn't like frogs. So he rolls up to this counter protest of the State of the Union. Remember, this is where people normally dress up. Senator Fetterman even had a suit on, which is rare for him. He was the only Democrat, by the way, that shook the president's hand. Democrats don't stand up for America. They sit down. And in the end, that's the truth that you've got to understand about Democrats. When you actually stand up to them, they sit down because they can't handle intellectual arguments. But this guy decides he's Robbie's road steamer. You can't make this up. And he decides he's going to audition to be the main character. And I think he may be. Because does he show up in a frog suit? No, no, he doesn't. He shows up in a giraffe suit wearing a thong and a harmonica, ladies and gentlemen. And you want to know what mental illness sounds like? You want to understand what demon possession sounds like? This is it.
I'm fresh out of an ICE prison in Minneapolis. I've been arrested 3 times by ICE over absurdity, over us being ourselves, over me singing songs like, "Hey, Mr. Tangerine Man, get rid of brown people for me. I'm Aryan white. There ain't no place I'm going to." And then all of a sudden,
And he's being cheered. Dude, what timeline are we living in 2026? Where a man can dress up as a giraffe. You think I'm making this up? I ain't making none of this up. Sometimes you have to illustrate absurdity with absurdity. I don't know how much more absurd they can get. I don't wanna actually test that boundary because I'm sure they can say, "Hold a second here, hold my beer." But these people are just absolutely bonkers. They're crazy, just like President Trump said. They're crazy. And ladies and gentlemen, these people vote. They show up in protest. My original plea towards the end of this segment stands. I want people to go out and research atrazine and see if not what Alex Jones is saying is true or false. I'm not saying you gotta like Alex Jones. Don't shoot the messenger. Go after the message. We've heard that before. We're gonna listen to this guy as we go into break.
And he's not ready for primetime player ICE agents with 2 weeks of training come after me. I got arrested in Portland. I got arrested in Minneapolis in the last 3 weeks twice. But they can't erase a movement, all right? What I went through is 1/1000th of a lot of marginalized
Oh,
people and
yeah.
what they have to go through in those ICE detention centers.
He's still going. That guy is a nut. He's already been arrested once. Hopefully, he gets back to jail. Obviously, he's out on bond. I'm sure that the Minnesota judge allowed him to go outside of state lines. It's all good. All we can do is point it out. No reason to do anything more than that. And I realized that that was a little bit of a crazy segment, but at the same time, you know, when the truth presents itself, you've got to follow it. Whether that be with this right here in the State of the Union and the frog stuff, whether that be with the Epstein stuff, I've got a story about that. And I don't and I didn't even plan to go here, but here we are. CEO of the World Economic Forum quits after Epstein ties scrutinized. So here we go again. World Economic Forum, you know, the people that actually identify all of these NGOs and supply money to all of these hate America groups all around the world coming after us. He's rolled up in this Epstein thing. Between the pedos and the pharmaceuticals, they got a lockdown on humanity right now. On Thursday, Borge Brende said he was stepping down as president of the CEO of the World Economic Forum a few weeks after the forum launched an independent investigation. They've had this stuff known for years. We all knew it was out there, but they slow drip it, and we get tired of it. We want the next shiny thing. Look, squirrel, shiny object, ruby, pancake. What distracts you? I don't know. I know that once I get locked onto something, I usually have the ability to stick to it. One of my commanders said it was one of my best attributes. Saying his tenure spanned 8.5 years, Brende framed the move as avoiding distractions and made no mention of Epstein himself. Nope, sure didn't. So now instead of just a CEO, you're going to have co-chairs. Andre Hoffman and Larry Fink said the outside review found no additional concerns and named Alois Zwingli. My man almighty, me and names. Some things are never going to change, people. Me and names is one of them. I just hope it brings a smile across your face like it brings across mine. Alios Alois Zwingli, interim president and chief executive, with the board of trustees overseeing the transition. Here's the kick pull line from this whole thing. The Geneva-based forum organizes the annual Davos Summit, and Brende became WEF president back in 2017, making a long tenure before his departure. He knew about this from the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, he knew this from the beginning. Dogfish chiming in, these freaks shouldn't be allowed to retire and walk away and enjoy their money. They should be made to suffer for their crimes. Dude, I would even say suffer might be a little bit hard of a word. The older Andy would have, but the new Andy, man, we just need to carve a prison out of the ice. Make sure that they're it's hospitable, but just put them up so they're out of civilization and just there you go. Give them some atrazine, and they'll be all right. They might not even need atrazine, but you know that's just all linked together. And again, like I said yesterday, I watched the State of the Union again, and some people said it was Trump's best speech ever. I've heard that before, and I definitely put this in his top 5, but he's had some powerful speeches, and it was a good one. You know, he basically told Congress they've only got one job, in this for the rest of the year before the elections happen. They've got one job, to pass the SAVE Act, to protect our voting rights. We need to do it. We absolutely need to do it. Our elections are our most direct way to communicate where we want our representative republic to go. And if you ain't American, get the heck out. Not only do I not want you to vote, you shouldn't vote. It's illegal. You're here illegally. No human is illegal. No, no human is illegal, but they can be in the country illegally. Just ask the Americans who violate Taiwan. Taiwan's illegal immigration code. They get put in jail, hard labor, and then on their way out the door, they get caned. There's a reason that Taiwan doesn't have an illegal immigration problem, ladies and gentlemen. With the State of the Union and President Trump not bringing up the big elephant in the room, it's an enormous risk. I will continue to say that. I am a MAGA guy. I am a Maha guy. Yesterday, it was pretty interesting. One of my longtime texters called me a rhino, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness. Okay, if I'm a rhino, uh, do better than me. Go out there and form a network in Mississippi to get President Trump and JD Vance or President Trump on the ballot with one phone call, and 2 hours later, we had it done. Do it better than me. Do it for JD Vance or your candidate of choice. Better yet, don't try to do something big like a statewide campaign. You might not be at that level yet. How about just doing it inside your precinct? Calling me a rhino. My goodness. I get a little bit offended there, not much. Look, this whole segment was supposed to be on the military because I did get some other texts too. A really good friend of mine who I genuinely cherish brought up the subject of the Ford and the potties not working on the Ford, and I was just kind of like that kind of happens and everything. But then three other people three other people came up and started asking me about it. I'm like, whoa, we got to address the USS Gerald R. Ford CVN 78. We got to get this rectified. No pun intended. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. We are moving and grooving, rocking and rolling. This next story is coming from Mario Nafwani on X, and you can just follow him on X, MarioNawfai. And I'm purposely using this story to kind of illustrate why I talk the way I do sometimes when it comes to military issues. As many of you know, I'm very proud of my military service. You know, I didn't do anything spectacular, but nonetheless, it was almost 21 years of active duty honorable service. And I signed a document saying that I wouldn't talk about any of the secrets that I may or may not have inside my brain until the year 2072. I'll be 100 years old. So I'm about halfway there. I'm a little over halfway there. Will I make it? Well, that's to be determined. But that's why I'm so careful about when I talk about certain issues. Like, people will bring up stuff and I'll just let them rant and rave, but I'm not either going to confirm nor deny. But there are bad apples who make it through the system. Former Air Force Major Gerald Runner Brown was arrested for training Chinese military pilots without authorization. Now, we have the best toys in the military world. That goes without saying. But our techniques, tactics, and procedures are written in blood. And it is what makes our pilots even that much better. So when we have pilots going out there and talking about our techniques, tactics, and procedures, very, very bad. Very, very bad. Listen to this. Brown was a F-35 instructor pilot in the simulator with 24 years of experience flying F-4s, F-15s, F-16s, and A-10s. So this guy had the gambit of fighters, of Air Force fighters, plus the A-10 tank killer. This guy had access to all the tools. He was exposed to all of that training. You know, we're sit there to memorize certain things and, you know, you just don't forget it. And we're all big boys and big girls. When we retire, we sign that piece of paper saying we're not gonna talk about that stuff. We don't talk about that stuff unless we're brought into a skiff and given express written permission, not verbal permission, never do that. You want me to talk about this? You write it down and put it in front of my lawyer and make sure that it's all good to go. He traveled to China in 2023 and spent his first day answering questions about the United States Air Force for 3 hours. He coordinated with Stephen Su Bin, a Chinese national who previously pled guilty to hacking U.S. defense contractors. He allegedly used the training that he got in the Air Force for the Chinese Liberation Air Force. And this source has come from Mario Nafwani, and he's quoting the DOJ. So I wanted to know more about this dude, and his DD-214 is not accessible, so we don't know what awards and decorations he's got and everything like this. But he served for more than 24 years as a '04 major. He left duty in 1996. So he went out with Eagle, F-15, F-16, and A-10 training along with F-4 training. He never actually got to fly the F-35. But it says here in his post-military career, after retiring, he worked for commercial cargo as a commercial cargo pilot, and more recently, he was a contracted simulator instructor for the U.S. defense contractors, training American pilots on the A-10 and the advanced F-35 Lightning II. So maybe he actually didn't fly the A-10. Maybe he only flew the F-4, F-15, and F-16, which would make sense. Although Air Force Bubbas, how often did someone go from F-15 to F-14 or F-15 to F-16 or F-16 to F-15? I don't think that happened too often. I know if we went to WIC, I know I shouldn't say WIC, I should say Shula, forgive me. If we went to Shula, there was the opportunity to kind of get some cross-pollination there. But I thought that once you were stuck in a system, you were pretty much gonna stay there. But this guy not only had a great military career, got to fly some of the most advanced airplanes in the military world, American warplanes, but then he went off and had a great career as a commercial pilot, making more bank on top of his retirement, and then he sells it all out in 2023 to some Chinese person. I wonder if they hooked him up with a little bit of fan action to just get him over the edge, so to speak, to convince him to give up our secrets. I have absolutely no sympathy for this dude if these allegations are true. He needs to face, um, the utmost penalties. He sitting there training our enemy on our techniques, tactics, and procedures. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, you don't hear me go into in-depth discussions about radar theory or about different weapons platforms and stuff like that, just because I don't want to end up on Mario's timeline. Now, saying that, we got to talk about the Ford, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. The Wall Street Journal just did a piece a couple days ago, but good friends of mine who I truly honor and respect, genuine admiration for, are talking about how the crappers on the Ford aren't working. So I am only going to refer to my experience doing 4 major combat deployments on carriers, 3 on the USS America and 1 on the Nimitz as an Air Force guy. And I'm just going to say it like this. Those things happen all the time. The CHT lines, as we like to call them, they get stoppered up all the time, man. And I'm not going to sit here and spend the next 4 minutes about the training that's required to use the restroom at sea. But you're moving around now. That ship's rocking and rolling up and down, side to side. You may wanna be careful about when you're planning to do a launch release. And there was this one restroom in Air Force Bubba's. I'm just gonna say the word, you can sing the song, but there in the Navy, they call restrooms heads. There was this one head, and it was operated by VFA 82. Don't don't remember the name of the squadron. They weren't an F-14 squadron, so they weren't a real squadron anyway. Not like the mighty, mighty VF-102 Diamondbacks, world's greatest F-14 squadron ever. But there was some poor sailor, man, he was trying to get down to business, and that thing just literally blew up on him. He got carted off to America. There are malfunctions that happen with the potties all the time. And when I see these articles coming through, Wall Street Journal or some of these other things, all I can think about is it's just social media. It's just social media. And for me, I don't wanna waste more time on it, but when I see it starting to demoralize the morale of the American citizens saying, "Hey, we just spent 14 billion on this aircraft carrier, and the potties don't work," I've gotta kind of gotta correct that situation. They're working just like they've always worked on the aircraft carrier. If you think, people say that there's a bowling alley and a swimming pool on the aircraft, you're kidding yourself. That vessel is not built for comfort, it's built for war. Now, if you wanna complain about the Ford not being able to have F-35s on it because the jet blast deflectors can't handle the heat, well, we can have that discussion, and that's all open source. This is nothing that I have intimate knowledge of. This is just stuff that's been reported openly by people who are much higher rank than me. Then we can talk about how the Ford has got serious issues. And will its sister ship, the John F. Kennedy, have those same issues as it's getting ready to it already went through initial sea trials last month. But will JFK have those same issues? Now that those are meaningful debates. But what I honestly think is that Ford sailors are tired. They've been out there for about 7 months now, and they'll be out there for a little longer. Carrier deployment lengths are minimum 6 months, but some of them have gone as long as 14 months. Imagine being away from home for 14 months, and you're not at Germany. You're not on land, you're on a boat with dudes. There might be some women out there, but none of that's happening. And it stinks, and it's smelly, and it's oily, and the food is actually pretty good. I can remember Navy chow being alright, especially, division dinners. That's the first time I ever had Alaskan king crab legs, like real like the things were bigger than my head, monsters. And, Christmas and Thanksgiving were always good. Easter dinner was always good. But our carriers are doing just fine, and there might become a day where the aircraft carrier goes the way of the battleship, but not today, fam, not today. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. And we are back at the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. First hour already in the can. And, we got to clear up some Olympic news. There's just two stories that I want to talk about. The first one was Kash Patel drinking a beer with the U.S. men's national team, hockey team. And I knew that the United States always sends out a security delegation. I did not realize that we normally do send either the director of the FBI or the deputy director of the FBI. And so for Cash to be there with the U.S. men's hockey team, I said I didn't necessarily agree with the picture, but it was great for him to be there. And you know what? The more I thought about it, hey, throw a cold one down. There's nothing wrong with that. Alexi Lawless, U.S. men's soccer player from 1994 vintage. By the way, the greatest soccer jersey America ever had, the denim stars and stripes. Man, that shirt was dope, man. Love that thing. Man, that was a great jersey. Anyways, Lexi Lawless posted a picture of or not then president, but former President Bill Clinton in the U.S. men's locker room at the World Cup in 2010 drinking a beer with a soccer player. And while it is a little bit different because he's no longer the president, it just goes to show you that our politicians, and make no mistake about it, Cash, while he is the director of the FBI, he is also a politician. We do enjoy celebrating our athletes, our American teams, whether they win gold or win the World Cup or they don't. And it is just absolutely silly to sit there and beat people up real quick. I see you calling, caller. We're less than a minute from the break. We'll have to take you in the next hour. The other story in the Olympic news is the story that said that, the men's Olympic team was going to the State of the Union and going to meet the president, and the women's team didn't have the time to get to the State of the Union, but they were gonna go visit the White House after the Olympics. Well, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos that have come out with the US men's Olympic team. Trump sent a jet to pick them up, and they flew to Miami and hit a club with their Olympic medals, and it is just awesome to watch. They're singing Toby Keith, they're singing the Star Spangled Banner, Americana and patriotism just running wild, and it's a beautiful thing to see. Meanwhile, the ladies are in Italy doing their ladies thing, having dinner with a Hollywood star and making fun of the men's national team who's eating Big Macs at the White House with the president. So which one do you choose, Mr. and Mrs. Mississippi? Eating Big Macs with the president or eating a fine meal with a Hollywood star in Italy? You're asking me. I'm going to the White House and eating myself a Big Mac. Give me that Big Mac. Let me chill in the room with the president for 5 minutes. How cool would that be? You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show. We'll be right back. Fire them up. We're firing them up for sure. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB, and we are broadcasting from our 50,000 watt blowtorch of a signal right here in Flora, Mississippi. But if you can't pick up the signal, you can always catch us on Rumble. You can always catch us on X. You can always catch us on YouTube. And you can catch us on the mothership that is WYAB.com. We appreciate that. I've reposted all of the links that I used in the first hour of the show on my X account. It's at Andrew Gosser, ANDREW GASSER. And I think I'm 7 likes away from my next target. So if you haven't liked my account, I would sure appreciate it. Give me a follow on X. That would be incredible. Look, if you want to be part of the program today, lots of texts. The number is 601-879-0002. Text line will continue to be open, 601-879-5060. But no matter whether the text line is open, the phone line is open, the one thing that is open or not up to debate is the mission of the Andrew Gosser Show, and that is to equip the saints. Who are the saints? You all are the saints. And I just keep on going back to Romans, man, and you gotta be careful because with Romans, it's gonna turn some people off. But with everything that we talked about in the first hour, and then seeing MK Ultra trend on X is just it's kind of bittersweet. But just go read Romans 1:26 to 28, and we'll call it good. We'll call it good there. But it says this: for this reason, God gave them over to degrading passions. Yep, running around on stage wearing giraffe suits with thongs. For their women exchanged natural relationships for that which was contrary to nature. And it's true. But we don't need to go down there anymore. I want to talk about the media. And it's funny because, in the news break, it said cameras are everywhere. Well, microphones are everywhere too. And clearly, my computer heard me talking about the Olympics and the hockey team because what comes up in my feed? The Athletic, which is a liberal rag, not worth the paper it's printed on or the electricity that's used to generate its content. But it says it's nice to be feted as a winner, as the U.S. men's Olympic hockey team has been. But who is celebrating you and why are they doing it? Matters more. No, winning matters. And your liberal rock gut thinking at the Athletic is one of the biggest problems that America actually has. But it's not just America that has this problem. There are Pulitzer Prize winners out there who think that they are God's gift to Mississippi, and they write things that are so misleading and are so beyond the pale. I catch it, and sometimes the sweet says, "Andy, how did you see that?" I'm like, I'm not sure. I just see these things." So what if I told you this? And this is a thinking exercise, but that's not a big deal for this audience here. We think while we're working. Shout out to the blue collar crew in the wet weather today. Hospital in Meridian to close by mid-March. What does that make you think? Does it mean a room? Does it mean a floor? Does it mean the whole building? Does it mean the hospital campus? What does it mean? What kind of headline is that? How about this? Regency Hospital in Meridian to close by mid-March. Now I'm thinking, okay, Regency Hospital. Now, I'm not in the medical field, but I think Regency, I'm thinking a name of a hospital. So a big hospital is closing in Meridian, Mississippi, mid-March. This is coming from the losers at the Mississippi Today. Regency Hospital, a Meridian facility. I didn't say facility in my monologue, but we could say it a facility. It's a facility. Regency Hospital, a Meridian facility that primarily provided extended care to patients with respiratory disorders, will close on or about March 13th. It's a 40-bed long-term acute care hospital that's on the second floor of Baptist Anderson Regional Medical Center South. So do you see what they did there? To the majority of people who don't give a flip about news, who just sit there to have their worldview reinforced, "Oh, there goes another hospital closing in Mississippi." Great journalism, losers at the Mississippi Today. It gets better. It focused on weaning medically complex patients off of mechanical ventilation and helping them breathe. So all of a sudden now you think that, "Oh my goodness, these people are out of their luck. There's nothing going on there." It then goes to talk about how the hospital on the second floor of the Baptist Anderson Regional Medical Center South is actually owned by a Pennsylvania-based medical company. So, does that mean that the Regency Hospital that's on the second floor of the Baptist Anderson Regional Medical Center South, is that are they leasing that or do they own it? What's gonna happen to the second floor now? And you've gotta scroll down to figure out what's actually gonna happen to these people. As of Monday, 4 patients remained at the hospital. Their treatment will continue until they're discharged or transferred to an appropriate facility for ongoing care. And guess what? Oskner Specialty Hospital, a 49-bed long-term acute care hospital about a block away from Regency Hospital, will continue to provide the same level of care. You know what this reminds me of? A bunch of roosters getting together and fighting to just get each other flared up and fired up. I was gonna use the other word for a rooster, but I decided against it. That was probably a wise radio decision on my part. But these are like roosters fighting. Have you ever seen roosters fight when they flare out their neck feathers and they get all big and they're sitting there jousting? That's all that Mississippi Today is trying to do. They're trying to get you all angry over whatever. I thought a hospital was closing. It's the second floor. Now, granted, we want people to be treated for what they need to be treated for, but you got to scroll down all the way through this garbage. And it of course, and I'm not going to read all the drama that this writer puts in there because it's not important because it talks about all the boo-hooing and stuff. But Ochsner Rush Health continues to operate Ochsner Specialty Hospital with no changes to our current operations. So they're a specialty hospital. So should the title of this been Regency Specialty Hospital in Meridian closes by mid-March? When you look at this, people out there are thinking that a whole hospital closed, but no, and there's other specialty hospitals available for treatment. And it goes on and on and on. But you have to scroll down to the second to the last paragraph for well, actually 2 paragraphs. Payments to long-term acute care hospitals for Meridian Medicare patients have been changed over the last decade, resulting in lower reimbursements for some patients. At the same time, healthcare costs, including staffing expenses, have risen. Yep. Thank you, Biden, for rapid inflation. In July, and here's the pull quote, and this is what's important to me, and I think it's important to all of you. In July, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services finalized an annual rate increase for long-term acute care hospitals, but some advocates say the bump is not large enough. It's never large enough. When we get raises, has it ever been large enough? When I've got promoted, those raises have been nice, and they have been large enough. But just a bump and raise, your annual COLA or whatever, Unless you're a government worker who gets like a 12% bump or a 15% bump. No, it's not enough, and the tax base can't afford it. It's because the taxpayers are paying for this. Not every state has a Shad White, an auditor who actually does, auditing. Now, we can't talk about the prosecution of Shad's investigations because Shad doesn't get to choose what gets prosecuted and what doesn't. You gotta go to a different state elected official for that. But when you think about all the fraud that has been perpetrated upon the American taxpayer just in the state of Minnesota alone, perhaps if the Democrats weren't sitting on their butts and protecting the fraud and actually going after the fraudsters, we wouldn't have situations like this. Perhaps if the deep staters inside the Republican Party got off their butts and started arresting some of these people and prosecuting them, we wouldn't have all the problems we have. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, and I know they had this saying in Mississippi because we had it in Illinois, and the South is a lot more wise than the North. We know this. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now you're going to have to go around with a 12-pound sledgehammer knocking the heck out of all of these people who have defrauded the United States of America and the taxpayers. I say it, and I'm sure it's going to end up being trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars. How do you recover that money? Can you just go into Elon Omar's bank account and just rip that 35 billion that she fleeced off America and just put it towards the debt? No. How do we recover all of this? I know we have our Vice President JD Vance uh, leading the war on fraud, and he's already stopped by all the Medicare payments into the state of Minnesota, which is a good start. But we're going to have to get that back because there are a lot of good people outside of the Minneapolis St. Paul area who actually need their Medicare and Medicaid and aren't frauding the system like Elon Omar and the Somali pirates that Joe Biden and the Democrats allowed into the country and refused to get kicked out. You know, the Elon Omar and the Somali pilots are more interested with that dude running around on stage in a giraffe outfit with a thong hanging out his butt than actually taking care of the American people. I'm sad that this hospital is closing, and does it really need to close? I don't know. But when I see leftist propaganda being perpetrated upon the citizens of Mississippi in a disingenuous way, it's gotta be confronted, it's gotta be countered. Andy, why do you even talk about it then? Because if we don't talk about it, it just goes unchecked. It's like a bully who comes and takes your lunch money every day. You don't worry about it anymore because you just give up your lunch money, you're just used to it now. You're used to that comfortableness. You might even have protection from that bully, but you gotta stand up to the bullies. This is a bunch of hot garbage journalism, in my opinion, and while we need hospitals, we need honest journalism, which is why independent media journalists like Nick Shirley, Mario that I talked about earlier, Nick Sordor that I use sometimes. There's good people out there who are doing honest journalism, and I believe that that's happening here in Mississippi too. You know who does a lot of good, honest journalism in the radio format, not necessarily the printed word? Clay Edwards. He breaks a lot of stuff. Kim Wade breaks a lot of stuff. I report a lot of stuff. That's the kind of stuff we need, and honestly, we need you actively engaged. How many of y'all have looked up atrazine yet? Just asking for a friend. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. Oh, yeah, everyone's a winner on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. And I love this show, and I love the time slot that it has because it has the ability to impact our lives here in Mississippi. Did you know that there's a bill coming up for a vote today in the Senate? Yep. It's HB 1637. It's already passed the House, and it's on its way to the Senate right now. And what's it called? The Vaccine Related Infant Death Panel. Yep. And we all know that there are a lot of questions with vaccines. Some people are very pro vaccine, some people are very anti vaccine. Some of us are in the middle. We appreciate the polio vaccine we got back in 1973 when we were a year old. We're not so hip on the stuff that's today. Mississippi HB 1637 creates an infant mortality review panel whose findings and proceedings would be confidential, shielded from public records, and closed to public scrutiny. I think if you want to have a infant mortality review panel, then that's great. But don't keep that from the public. Those findings, we're paying for those findings with our Mississippi tax dollars. We deserve to see them. And this is the kind of garbage that we have to deal with sometimes. Mississippi has the highest infant mortality rate in the nation. You know why? Because we're the most vaccinated. That's just my hypothesis, and that's my opinion. The Louisiana Department of Health recently studied infant death and vaccines and found that infants who received any vaccines, 3 months uh, by 3 months old, were up more than 74% more likely to die by 4 months compared with infants who were not vaccinated at all. That's an interesting kind of deal. I wonder how many people opt out of all vaccinations at birth because they take your baby away after it's born and it's leaving. And your whole mom is holding the baby, daddy cuts the cord, and they're taking the vitals and making sure it's healthy and everything. Children in Mississippi are required to receive 21 doses by 6 months to attend daycare. We need to change that. If there's nothing to hide, publish the data, and that's what we're going to do. We've talked about on this radio show, in this program, how we want you to be actively involved. You don't want to look up atrazine? Maybe you could give your state senator a call and say, hey, vote against this bill. We don't like it. You can call them, you can email them, you can go do whatever you want to do. But I'm telling you this, I'm not saying that we don't need a study to look at vaccinations on our newborns and infants, but hiding that data, that is some Area 51 type of garbage right there. We need that data. Why is it that our politicians are taking care of the pharmaceutical companies so much? Why? Is that money really worth your soul? That paycheck? That fundraiser? Is it really worth it? Is your granddaughter or grandson worth it? Look, I just got to see my sweet granddaughter. She is a pistol. She's all fired up. Let Pappy read her some books, and that's awesome. But hey, I don't want her getting all these shots. 21 shots to go in and for daycare. If you don't know how to call your senator, you can download the TCM app. We've talked about it before, but you can go to the App Store or whatever it is on a Samsung Galaxy. ECM Legislative, it's got it's Mississippi red state with the sun in the middle. You should go ahead and you can go read HB 1637. It's supported by both Democrats and Republicans. Surprisingly, you've got one Republican who's sponsoring it, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 Democrats, including my state representative, Fabian Nelson. And I have to be truthful, I didn't get a chance to reach out to him on this. I'm just hearing about it. Again, there are over 3,000 bills. There's no way that, you could do that. But the roll call vote in the House, this thing passed 121 to 0 to 1 no vote, or to 1, no vote, meaning present. So everybody is apparently for keeping this secret. "Oh, Andrew, there's HIPAA data." No, you don't have to release the names and addresses of the kids, but that data should be made available for all of, especially for science. And I know our major UMMC facility here is under a ransomware attack right now. They're getting it back, and in some of the comments that I'm seeing about this ransomware attack are just over the top. They're just completely over the top. There are a lot of really distressed nurses and doctors who wanna do the right thing, and they can't get their data, which must make us reexamine our whole medical infrastructure anyway. This is just some Russian, Chinese, or Ukrainian kid in his underwear in a basement somewhere ransomwaring University of Mississippi Medical Center. What happens when the AI decides to turn on it and ransomwares every hospital in the greater United States? That's scary. Y You won't even be able to get on your favorite social media platform, blog, website, and whine and moan and complain about it. Your phone won't even work. Think about it right now. We're in an age where we can take 30 seconds, call our senator, say vote no or vote yes, depending on your point of view. I'm not going to sit there and push that. But it takes very little time. But we don't do it. We have less than 10% interaction. That to me is frightening. That to me is scary. If you want to read the bill, I'm going to actually put it on my X account. And of course, we will follow it as it goes through the rest of the system. But that's just something you can do. I always want to give you ideas to do. You know what else you could do if you live in Hinds County? You could be an election judge and help us out in the Republican Party. There's some of us who are election judges who just can't do the job anymore. We've done it for a while and physically just can't do it. Mentally there, physically not so much. Heart's still there, physically not so much. And if we don't, we'll just let the Democrats in Hinds County run the Republican primary in Hinds County, and we'll surrender those 18 to 24,000 votes. Yep, that's exactly what's going to happen. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. We will be right back. Mm. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. All sorts of craziness kicking off. It's the last segment here. And we were just talking about how if AI shut down all the hospitals and the social media and everything, and just more proof that AI is slowly creeping into business every day. I got two stories here. First one is eBay laying off about 800 roles or 6% of the workforce. Why? Streamlining operations and focus on strategic priorities. What do you think that is? What do you think that is? Streamlining services. Could that be AI taking over those roles? 800 of them with a click. We're going through another, we had the industrial revolution, the technology revolution, the computer revolution. This is like the AI revolution. There are new chips being developed all the time, and it just seems to me that as AI continues to grow, it's going to be harder and harder for humans to actually do certain things. What are we going to be relegated to? People going to actually put a chip in their brain to try to compete with the computers? I don't know, but it's definitely frightening to me. Mortgage rates. Mortgage rates. We Trump talked about the economy and how it's the hottest. It's the best economy going right now. Mortgage rates fall below 6% for the first time in more than 3 years. Man, I think when I bought my first house, my first mortgage rate was 3.9. I think I'm paying 4.9 now. I'm not sure. The average 30-year fixed mortgage rate, it's dropped to 5.98% for the first time. It has been under 6% since 2022, according to Freddie Mac. Well, we all remember 2008 and the mortgage crisis then. Previous high borrowing costs could discourage homeowners with low pandemic-era rates from selling, which kept housing inventory low and prices high. Well, that's what they're telling us. Someone was trying to explain to me, a realtor, where these big conglomerates are coming in and buying hundreds of single-family homes and then renting them out and drying up the housing markets. And they're trying to pass a law that basically says uh, these industrial companies can't go into the real estate business like that. But that's almost kind of like anti-American to me. If you're a business and you're operating legally and ethically, why can't you do something? I don't know. But that's just another story that caught my eye. But this is the one that's really going to get the left. Maybe the left will actually stand up and start whining and complaining over this. Kansas invalidates 3,500 transgender IDs under new law. Published in the Kansas Register on Thursday, February 26, Kansas officials said that IDs with gender markers that do not match sex assigned at birth are invalid under the new law, SB 244. With a 31-9 vote in the Senate and an 87-37 vote in the House, Republican supermajorities in the Kansas legislature overrode Governor Laura Kelly's veto. Why is it that the women want to change the sex of their babies? I don't get it. But I'll tell you what, you're seeing it. And again, go read Romans 1. I'll just leave it there. I don't want to get too preachy on you, but I'm going to get preachy on you. They're all about this androchrome, or androzine that I was talking about earlier. They're all about that. And Dogfish kind of brought up a point, and I actually misread his comment, but I want to read it here. How many people actually know of what androchrome is, and how know the chemical formula that makes shape of a bunny? And I thought you were thinking about Bad Rabbit, dude. I immediately thought about Bad Rabbit because Bad Rabbit is gay as all get out. Well, actually, he's bi. But what makes a dude like Bad Rabbit do what he did? Honestly, I always thought it was the cell phone just programming the brain. You get subjected to enough of that as a young kid, you're gonna think it's normal behavior. You show up to your kindergarten classroom and your teacher's dressed like a rainbow warrior with a beard and a dress and a skirt and a tutu with the rainbow socks pulled up over his knees, and this is supposed to be normal behavior. You tell your teacher, "I wanna be a dinosaur today." You need to slap the taste out of that kid's mouth and say, "Nope, you're a human, and oh, by the way, you're born a boy or you were born a girl." It's absolutely tragic where our country has fallen to with this transgenderism and how the medicine that we depend on has gone from do no harm to bring me all the money, whether that be in Washington, D.C. or right here in Mississippi. We haven't heard a lot of Bad Rabbit after the Super Bowl. Could that be another diversion? Hillary Clinton says she has no new information on Jeffrey Epstein during testimony, rebukes Republicans. This is from NBC News. Hillary Clinton testified before the U.S. House lawmakers in New York saying she had no knowledge of criminal activities. How in the heck does anybody really believe that, by the way? Hillary had no knowledge of what her husband was doing. She knew about Lewinsky. She knew about the blue dress. Women, tell me, are your husbands really that smart to try to pull something over on you like that without you finding out about it eventually? You know, there's a reason why the Sweet Bee and the Sweet Toots, my wife and my daughter, have my passwords to all my accounts, all my social media, all my emails, except my military one, which I really don't even have access to. They have it all. I don't want any of that nonsense creeping up into my future. And this is the president of the United States. You're telling me that Secret Service doesn't have something on him? She was the first lady and the secretary of state. What difference does it make? Hillary's gonna end up they're all gonna end up getting off on this because we can't prosecute like we need to. We 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 don't actually drop indictments. We drop letters. Should I do it? Has anybody heard from Pam lately? I haven't.
Rape, homicide, manslaughter. That's who they're trying to protect in Minnesota. I do not understand these people. We sent Governor Walz a very strong letter today. We had been
Very strong letters are out there. Very strong letters. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. America are struggling under recovering from the Biden inflation. And if this is almost like a 1980 redux with Ronald Reagan, where it took almost 8 years to try to recover from that debacle that was Jimmy Carter. Now you can say Reagan did a lot of bad stuff, and I happen to agree with some of it. You know, it was Ronald Reagan who gave the initial amnesty to the pharmaceutical companies so they couldn't be held liable. We have to be truthful about that. Ronaldus Magnus, arguably the greatest president in my lifetime until Donald J. Trump. But you think about the corollaries, some symbolism of both of these administrations. It's huge. And you remember that the DOJ under Reagan really didn't do too much. It's just kind of keeping the wheels turning. Wheels of justice turn slow. Had hard confirmation hearings in the Senate back then, nothing like it is today. We think about it, it's just history repeating itself. Nothing new is under the sun. Do you got time for one more? The closed doors depositions in Chippewa follow months of tensions between the Clintons and the Republican led House Oversight Committee. Why did she get to testify in a closed door session in Chippewa when they made Steve Bannon and all of that? Well, Steve Bannon didn't testify, but all of the Republicans go in front of the full committee in Washington, D.C. Why is that? We got some poor negotiators there. Poor negotiators. The testimony comes amid ongoing political and public pressure over Epstein abuse case, with President Donald Trump previously ordering the release of the case files and House Oversight Chairman James Comer threatening to contempt charges before the Clintons agreed to appear. It's delay, distract, deflect, avoid. Look, hockey team wins gold over here. Women's hockey team wins gold too. State of the Union address. Throw out the man in the giraffe with the thong. Shiny object, squirrel, frog. We've got so much on our plate, we can't even digest it all. I'm telling you. But that's why we have shows like the Andrew Gosser Show, Clay Edwards Show, Lindsey Beckham Show, Kim Wade Show. That's why we have radio stations like WYAB, where our listeners support our sponsors, and we're grateful for them. If you're looking to sponsor the show, that'd be great. You can always give me an email at andrew@wyab.com, or you can text me at 601-879-5060. Would appreciate it. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show. Got a few minutes left here. Something that happened yesterday, I think I talked about it, might not have, I just might have read it and not had time to talk about it, was the USS Normandy guided missile cruiser, CG-60, left Norfolk for the last time. It's a retired cruiser, and it reached Philadelphia today. And that ship means a lot to me because that was our escort guided missile cruiser from our aircraft battle group, or aircraft carrier battle group, America. And I saw a lot of people commenting on it that they can bring it back out of retirement. No, it's not. Ships rarely ever do that. We did bring the battleships back, but that's not going to happen. But it was a great ship. Got to see it do some work, and the sailors that manned that ship were very special indeed. Last news story of the day. At least 10 FBI staffers who worked on Mar-a-Lago documents case are fired, sources say. That's great. Where are the charges? Why is it that everybody in government who screws up just gets fired? They never get charges. We never hear about that. But we'll hear about all the civilians who screw something up and get charged with crimes. At least 10 FBI employees worked on former special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into President Trump's retention of classified records after he left the White House in 2021 were fired on Wednesday, multiple sources said at CBS. Well, I'm glad that CBS is actually reporting that they got fired at least. The firings came after Reuters reported that the FBI had subpoenaed records of phone calls made by FBI Director Kash Patel and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. So, man almighty, this is still going on. And remember what I told you, ladies and gentlemen. Remember what I said. Those pictures where you saw the secret, top secret, classified, or confidential, those cover sheets, those were all unclassified. Those cover sheets are always unclassified. Those cover sheets just tell you what's underneath it, the classification. And that was a complete setup hit job, Operation Mockingbird hit piece. Yep. Will anything ever come out of it? I don't think so. I'm being truthful. I just don't think that the right people are in place to do that. Last thing I want to talk about today is I got a text about my hat. Normally I wear my Air Force retired hat or my National Related Pastor's hat, but I've got a new hat now, and people can't read it. I'll get a good picture of it and put it up on my Twitter account, my Facebook account. But this is the Chicago and Northwestern, ladies and gentlemen. The train company of my childhood was bought up by Union Pacific in 1995, and I joined the Chicago Northwestern Historical Society, Illinois Railway Museum, and you join the Historical Society, you get a hat, and I like it. It's bright, it's colorful. Ladies and gentlemen, take care of one another, be blessed, and we'll see you in about 22 hours. Take care, everybody.